Welcome to the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast, where you get straightforward, no-nonsense ideas on leadership and growth, both personally and professionally. It's brought to you by the Chief Coaching Officer of the Peak Performance Group. He's also a brilliant and successful serial entrepreneur. He's a two-time author. He's a certified executive coach. He's a sales genius. He's bald.
Hey now.
And he's your host of the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast. Buckle your chin strap. Here's your host, Coach Rick Colster.
Hey, welcome to the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Rick. That's right. It's another good day here in Texas, people. I got to tell you what, it's been a good one. Remember, like, subscribe. We're available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, YouTube video. Hit like and subscribe. Go to our channel, subscribe so you get every single episode. Welcome for tuning in, folks. Today is a big one. And as always, the Bald Truth is all about leadership. And today, we're going to talk about clarity, happiness, and effective leadership. Our guest today focuses on how you can get clarity while keeping your effectiveness sharp. This guy, he's the real deal, man. Former Army officer, and I know he has some opinions on the state of leadership today. As we come to you in the beginning of September 2021. I'm going to date this thing right here so we know what's going on when we look back 20 years from now. So again, this guy is a high-energy executive coach and a junior tech executive with 14 years of Army experience. He currently serves as an executive officer in the Army Reserves. And while on active duty, Dallas, I love the name, brother. I love the name. He served in Afghanistan. Thank you for your service. Completed Ranger School and competed on the Army's international running team. Believe that. He's the founder of Henry Engagements. And Dallas teaches his open heart leadership model. We're going to talk about the open heart leadership model today, which focuses on inside out growth and develops authentic leaders all the way to team connection. He lives in Texas, of course, my kind of guy, right? He's got a wife of 11 years and a 3-year-old he's chasing around. I'll tell you what, I know what that's all about with my little grandson. Today, we welcome Dallas Henry of Henry Engagements. And like I said, I love that name because I live in the DFW area. I live in the Dallas area. Well, Dallas, welcome my new friend Dallas to the Bald Truth. Dallas, welcome to the Bald Truth, brother.
Thanks so much. Super glad to be here. Appreciate it, Coach Rick.
Awesome. We're glad to have you here, buddy. I'll tell you what, this has been a pretty exciting time going on in today's world.
There's lots happening. There's no lack of attention to be spread across all the different opportunities, all the different support areas right now. So lots going on in the world today.
I know. So let's share what's on your mind today. Let's talk about you. You're an expert in leadership.
Yeah.
What would you say is your leadership philosophy? You talked about open heart leadership.
Sure.
How do you approach leadership?
After lots of trial and error, after seeing what worked, seeing what didn't, and then candidly trying to do what I thought leadership was, I think that we dress it up too much, Coach. And I think it's a lot more of just the simplicity, the things that got us by on the playground, that got us by with our families. For me, my big 3 pillars really just come down to trust, others first, and radical candor through disciplined love. Specifically with trust, and could go back and think about times at Ranger School or early on in my time in the tech space, is we don't establish the foundational trust. Are you going to take care of me? Can I be sure that I can take care of you and it will be reciprocated early on, whether that's friendship, mentors, managee, others first, right? Serve others. It's a simple principle. These things become tongue in cheek, but as I delve further into coaching and leading others, I realized that it starts with what their needs are first. And those typically are the wrong questions to ask, right? So I always push people, coach my teams and coach my execs I work with on serve down first, serve your teams, serve up, serve your leaders, or in this space, it could be the C-suite or it could be the clients. Then lastly, left and right, your peers, make them better. If you do all those well, you're going to be taken care of. You'll be just fine. And then lastly, the radical candor with disciplined love, just tell the truth. People know when something's good. People know when something stinks, and people know when they are that good or they stink. And sometimes they just want to hear you say it. I've had so many hard conversations with such great folks out there, awesome leaders now, where I just said, well, gosh, Heather, gosh, Tom, gosh, Jane, that missed the mark. That kind of sucked today, right? They're like, oh my God, I didn't think anybody else noticed. Thank you so much. And it's just a relief to be like, yeah, that really sucked, didn't it? Yeah. Now let's go get better. The thing that I have found is the balance of that. Disciplined love. What is that? That's having the discipline to say, Coach Rick, that was not our best. We got to get better. And then being there the next day, having the discipline to say, hey, remember that tough conversation yesterday? I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not quitting on you. Okay, now let's go do the things we talked about. Trust, others first, and then that radical candor through disciplined love.
Being straightforward. You got to be able to have that conflict too. I think conflict is a huge piece. And that's not bad conflict. It's conflict where I challenge you, where you can say, you know what, that was a pretty crappy day. That didn't turn out the way we wanted it to. So let me challenge you. What could you do better? And I think that's when we talk about conflict. Of course, everyone talks about conflict and says, oh, conflict bad. No, conflict good. Yeah. It's real. And I feel like a caveman right now. Conflict good. Oh, yeah. But it is. Yeah. It's something that challenges us to be better. And as leaders, as I'm hearing you say, is we need to be better. We need to challenge ourselves to take that step up and that next step.
And as leaders, it can be okay that you're wrong. I call it creative conflict, right? I'm going to come at you. I'm going to push you on that. Why are we pitching this client in this way? Why are we taking this feature live now? Why are we holding back for the next series of raising? And I might be wrong. I'm just pushing you. I'm just diving in the ring with you a little bit. And then I'm like, oh shit, you're right. If that is the right metric to measure, that is the right time to go seek another round of funding. And so that's the other thing. As leaders, you don't always have to win. And that is the disciplined love. I have the love for you to let you win, and the discipline of myself to say, I'm unarmed. I'm not right here. You are. And so, yeah, it's creative conflict, and either side can win. Too often you'll see the leaders just coach down and say, hey, we're going to do this in this way. Why? Well, because I'm the manager, or because I'm the C-suite. I think you hit exactly on the head. Creative conflict, energizing that.
So, and that's the cool part about leadership, is there's no one right way. Mm-hmm. It's all about flow. And that's what leadership is. So, all right, let's talk about something. You know, you talk about taking accountability. You talk about trust. We just saw a Marine Lieutenant Colonel throw himself into the fire. I know you know what I'm talking about. And I don't remember his name today, but he threw himself on the fire. Why don't we see more of that? I mean, I have a boatload of respect for the guy because it's necessary. He saw something that was wrong and he spoke up. How often do leaders in business see something that's wrong and they just go, well, just the way we do business, let's keep going.
Yeah. I think that's part of the joy of being a leader, and why I coach everyone to seek it out is you're the one that's keeping your score at the end of the day. There was something about this scenario where that gentleman said, that's enough. This is my time. There was others, and I spoke with many other leaders. This is where I'm at with this. This is where I'm not making this decision. This is why I'm not writing that letter. And that's what's passion driving for me with leadership, is earn the reputation every day and decide, is this where I draw the line or not? Can I make a difference later, or do I want to raise the flag on this one? I know it's a tough subject and certainly don't want to tap dance around it, but an officer decided I need to make a call. I need to make my voice heard, and understood the calculated risk. There was certainly no surprises for this gentleman on the way that it panned out. They made the assessment. I coach people this all the time. Hey, should I transition from active duty to private sector? Hey, should I go for that promotion? Hey, should I jump out of this big, large tech company to the startup? The scales need to remain balanced. Are you receiving value from the organization you're working in and leading in? Are you serving as well as you could? Are you giving as much as you're getting? And as soon as those scales are tipped, then you might need to reset those. And I think in this case, the gentleman made the assessment of the scales are tipped, and I'm going to make a decision that's going to change the impact of my career. And I push people that all the time. As a leader, you're the one that owns the scoreboard. You get to decide, and you have to be only accountable to yourself. And so why don't we see that with more leaders? I think they're making decisions and evaluating their scales. How often should we be doing it in the private sector? The best kind of relationships are where you can walk into the door, close it with your boss, look at her and say, this isn't right. I don't want to do it this way. And I've done that recently. Within the last 2 months, she looked at me and said, I hear you, but we're gonna. And I said, yes, ma'am, walked out and executed. Yeah. And I was happy. I drew my line. She said, erase that line and come on, deal. That openness, again, back to the radical candor. It's got to work both ways. You got to be able to send it up. You got to be able to send it down. Sometimes in places like the military, it has ramifications.
You're absolutely right, because part of it as a consultant, with the Peak Performance Group as a consultant, we work with businesses on strategy, growth, leaders on leadership growth. Mm-hmm. We have to have that trust. And I love that we started with trust, because we've got to have that trust where I can say to the client, this ain't working, bro. I know you've been doing this forever. even to the point where I work with a lot of family-owned businesses.
Sure.
So family-owned businesses, sometimes the family isn't always the right person. It's that right person on the bus, right people on the bus, right people in the right seats, right? And sometimes that son-in-law who's been there and you gave him that job and he did that thing and he's just not doing it. He's not cutting the mustard, but you can't fire him because you guess he's your son-in-law and then your daughter's going to be a little mad and oh crap. And then how do I handle the family dynamics? And that's the part that we have to build that trust as consultants to say, and leaders, because we've got to emulate that leadership model that we teach, that we show. We've got to be able to say, guess what, John, you got to fire the guy. You got to get rid of him. You got to move him somewhere, do something with him because he's hurting your business here. And if you don't trust, they don't trust you. They won't allow you to say that. And that same thing in the private sector, same thing in the public sector. You got to build that trust.
I have a good mentor as I was transitioning from active duty. And he was just helping me out with some things like, hey, Dallas, a lot of military officers don't understand profit and loss. You got to master it. A lot of leaders will stop trusting their gut. And then we start talking about hiring decisions. Because in the military, you certainly manage your staff, but very rarely do you hire and fire the way you do in the private sector. And what Colonel Hank Kennison, to serve with my grandfather, told me, he's like, Dallas, if you're thinking about it, if you're wondering about it, if you're stewing on it, then it's time to do it. And he was talking about promoting. He was talking about hiring. He was talking about firing. And oftentimes, let's use the son-in-law example you just gave. This is the joy. The son-in-law knows it. The son-in-law is expecting it. The son-in-law is walking on pin needles. I can't find a time where I've given hard feedback, bad news, or made a decision, and the employee's like, shit, you really surprised me on this. I thought I was killing it. I thought I was on
didn't
fire.
See that one coming, did I?
Very oftentimes it's, thank you. Oh my gosh, yes. Now, if you just directly fire them, okay, probably not a thank you, but oftentimes it's like, hey, you're sucking. Are you good? What's going on? Hey, this isn't working, is it right? Hey, let's find something a little bit better for you. Or maybe let's take a step back because they're wondering, thinking about it, talking about it too on their own. You bring a sense of relief. And that's the burden of leadership we talk a lot about and coach a lot on is, yeah, you own this. Welcome to be in the C-suite. Welcome to be in the owner. Welcome to be in the senior manager.
Okay, so now as an Army officer, and you said the 14 years of Army experience, as an officer in the Army, you're tasked with leading. What are some of the lessons? You just mentioned your colonel, like it was kind of a mentor. What are some of those lessons that you learned about leadership there?
It's been a blast because they've evolved. I've been lucky in growing up in a military family. And the best gift that my military family gave me was they didn't force the military on me and they let me navigate my own way. And lo and behold, I ended up at Fort Knox at Armor Officer Basic Course. I think a few of the really big ones that I picked up from the military starting out as a lieutenant was for them to earn that trust, for them to give you that trust, you need to be right there with them. And it was an early time in my military career where I was afraid. I thought everyone needed to like me. I'll raise my hand. I'm kind of embarrassed by it. I needed to have friends. I needed my team to think that I was great. And he's a great young specialist. He's now a strong E7 sergeant. I just saw him at Fort Benning a couple months ago. He would be okay if I told the story, Sergeant Wyatt. And I was at a hand grenade range and I was leading off and I was giving my safety brief. And this is a big deal as lieutenant. I'm running the hand grenade range. Coach Rick, I'm a big deal. Look at me. And I'm giving my safety brief and he won't stop cutting up. He won't stop cutting up. And I lost it. And I snapped at that ass. And I was like, enough, Wyatt, stop. And in front of all of his peers, I lit him up, put him in line, put the heels together. And I was afraid I was going to lose him forever. I really was. At that moment, I was like, well, he's gone. Who's he going to take with him? Because I thought I would ruin the culture. What it showed him was, I love you enough to not let you do that bullshit in front of your peers. Cut it out. He and I stay in touch to this day. Every time I see him, he runs up, gives me a big old bear hug. So what did I learn there? I learned that part of our job is to give that disciplined love and take risks and show people you care by saying, that's not good enough. Stop it. We don't do that in this platoon. So those were early lessons of and I guess what I call that again is the disciplined love, wearing your heart on your sleeve and showing them you're hurting me, you're embarrassing me, you're better than this. That was early on. As I am now more senior and as the executive officer of the battalion, a couple hundred soldiers, the biggest lesson I've learned is sometimes the best thing we can do is get out of the way and let them make their own mistakes or show you, hey, no, sir, there's a far better way to do this. And too often we think might is right, experience is right. Some of the most brilliant soldiers I've worked around, far junior than me, under, level of education, not the same, but they have the better idea. So understanding how far you can let the soldiers walk out the plank or have the rope and the tug of war, how far can it come one way and you can still jump in and save it. So that's the other thing I've learned as a leader is you don't always have to engage. Sometimes it's better when you don't engage and they're able to learn live a little bit. Those are just a few. We could fill up the next couple hours if you let me. I'll just keep going.
We could talk about this forever, because this is, right up my alley. I'm loving this. So I'm thinking about this as I'm here listening to you. You took a big leap in transitioning out. You mentioned transitioning out a number of times. How does this how do you go from a structured environment, military, very structured, very hierarchical? Yeah, I make up words as I go.
There you go. I love it.
So it's got a really, really strong hierarchy to a maybe less structured, what we think of as a less structured tech sector role, sitting around in beanbag chairs and, brainstorming.
It's absolutely all of those things. Yeah. True story. About 40 days before I started and moved to Silicon Valley, I was at the Best Ranger competition, jumping out of helicopters, rifle range, unknown distance ruck marches, truly just kind of the peak of combat arms officers, Delta officers, special forces officers. And then not 60 days later, I'm in Silicon Valley in a nap pod, going to the micro kitchen. I really struggled. And again, I'm okay being awkward and vulnerable about it. I brought such a sense of imposter syndrome. And it really was me failing at the things that I knew were true. I didn't trust the people that hired me. I didn't trust my interviewers. What do I mean? I felt like I needed to re-earn my position there every day. And I had to get in and push and get in there and show them how strong and smart I was. It's not that space. It's a creative space. It's a space where the most junior employee, the most senior director, if you've got the right idea, if you've got the right line of code, whatever it may be, you can share. So all of those things were the space that I grew up in. I had a very hard time, but it was early on, just the imposter syndrome and fighting it. I didn't trust those that hired me. I needed to re-earn the job, and I projected that on others. And I wasn't serving as well as I could as a leader. It's a different style of leadership. I got really lucky. I was hired by 2 veterans and worked next to another. And they just, every now and then, true story, they pulled me aside like, hey man, come here. You were going to mess this up. You need to listen. Here's the opportunity you have. Keep some of the good, lose some of the bad. And whether it's how I spoke to people, how quickly I triggered my temper tantrums, whatever it may be. And now I love it. Now it's a blast. Now I'm much more Google in my Army job than I ever was before. I go to my Army Reserve weekends and it's pretty much just me in tech sector mode. I don't wear flip-flops and things like that, but it's certainly a much more dressed down leadership that a lot of biases that I brought in that I was able to remove and unlock. It's been a great journey, certainly a challenging one, lots of bumps and bruises along the way, but really it became more about fostering a culture of respect, fostering a culture of positivity, and fostering one where I could look you in the eye, boss, and say, Rick, that ain't right. Ooh, that would set me off my first couple of months. And now I look at my team, I'm like, I have no idea what this is. Do you? I would have never said that 4 years ago, ever.
Oh,
now,
you could never say that in the military. Oh, hell no. So I think we've got, what I've found is we found a gap in leadership, a huge gap in leadership, especially and I'm gonna date myself and maybe make a couple people mad. But if you're mad, write something in the comments. Tell me how you disagree. I want to know about it. But right. I think there's a gap from where today's leaders are and the future leaders are. There's a huge gap in leadership knowledge, experience. So it's kind of either someone's a great leader that people want to follow, or sadly, they suck and have to force people to do things they want to have them done. They want to get done, right? So how do today's leaders, these future leaders, look, my generation is on the way out. Bottom line, yours is here to stay and is coming up. Generationally, how can today's leaders, these millennial leaders, really, and our audience is made up of a lot of young leaders, because we really address that in the Emerging Leaders Academy here at the Peak Performance Group. So that's one of our key principles, is helping young leaders become better leaders. So for you, your perspective, how can today's leaders be the one people want to follow? What do it take? What do you have to do? What does that mean? What are the actions that a young leader can exemplify, they can take?
Yeah, this takes me to, first of all, there's a massive chasm, and I'm okay to say oftentimes in the private sector, especially as we move into the Silicon Valley tech sector, there's a larger premium put on other skill sets aside from leadership. And that may be okay for some roles, but that's not okay for an industry. And we've seen those struggles. What can they do? What can they exemplify? What skills can they exude? You and I were joking a little bit earlier about self-deprecating humor. That's my shot. And I love to shoot it. And I like to make fun of myself. And it allows me to connect with folks. And that's what I want to talk about for a second is find a way to establish your connection. You're going to leverage vulnerability, authenticity, and relatability to do it. Everyone has a different style. Everyone has a different background. Everyone has a different expertise. But at the end of the day, we all want human connection. And for me, before I light you up for a bad presentation or a bad line of code you wrote or a misstep in a military formation, or I'm getting into you because you didn't go seek the Series C the right way we talked about it at the startup, I'm going to tell a story about the time I made something even worse, or I made an even poorer decision. I want to show you, hey, I'm just as vulnerable. Or I'll say something like this, hey, this is really risky. I'm about to tell you something really hard and I'm really nervous about it. And I do this all the time. And this can be a hard conversation. Is now an okay time to share this kind of thought? And he's like, yes or no, right? And she or he will. And then authenticity, give it to them the most truthful way. Don't use tech speak. Don't use military jargon. Use your language. I grew up in Kansas. All my family's from Texas. I use some hucklebuck and draws and jaws that maybe only you will understand, but that's what I bring. I don't try and use a language that's not my own. I'm most authentic. And I'll tell people, hey, I was embarrassed, or I feel silly for thinking that we could do this together and you ignored me, and all the rehearsal we did, you didn't follow up on. I want to make sure we're communicating, but I feel hurt. Like, that's very authentic. And then relatable. Hey, I had this happen before. I can't express to you how embarrassed I am about the time I interacted poorly with my first manager at Google. We're close friends now, but I buffed up to him because he was changing my responsibility scope. And that's like changing your company command guide on. And I was so mad at Hector. Well, we're fine now. But I have to tell these stories, say, hey, I've been there. I'm not preaching to you from some mountain. I'm sitting right next to you. So again, how do we do that with young leaders? We have an amazing ability across generations to create relationships and to have friendships, whether it's digitally or whether it's live. How do we do that? And you connect. It's the same thing in private sector. It's the same thing in public service. And the method to do that is remain vulnerable, be authentic in what you show and share, and be relatable. That's going to unlock.
I'll tell you what.
That's going to unlock
awesome.
it.
You know what it reminds me of is the 3 Fs. I use the 3 Fs: feel, felt, found. I know how you feel. Mm-hmm. I felt the same way. And what I learned from that is this, because you get to share your foul ups, your screw ups. Mm-hmm. I felt the same way. I've had this happen to me. This is what's going on this is what I learned when I did this. And here's what I learned. So feel, felt, found is a great way to have a conversation with someone that's a difficult conversation. I know how you feel. This sucks. This is no good. I felt the same way when I was in the situation and explained the situation. And this is what I found coming out of it. And this is how I resolved it. Here's how I found about it. So that's using that, and just, we call it the 3 Fs. Mm-hmm. And it works great. And I love that. And, building alignment. I love when you keep saying building alignment here is, so if you were to be tactical, I'm going to take you from a strategic mode to a tactical mode. And I know you get that from a military side, right? We're going from the concept, we're going down to, we're boots on the ground right now. Let's go tactical. So if someone's listening right now, one of our listeners right now wants to know what to do, what can they be doing to build alignment? What are some things they can tactically do to build alignment?
The first thing I would say is hear every idea in the room, because you probably don't have the best idea. Listen to others first. Make sure folks feel connected to the solution, even if the solution is not their own. Hey, I'm okay to share an idea, even if it's a shitty idea. Can I get it out there? And then maybe you can make it a little bit better. The first thing for creating alignment, for creating the enablement of a team is, my uncle tells me all the time, he wears me out, Rick. Hey, Dallas, you got 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them accordingly. We need to do the same thing as leaders.
Perfect ratio.
I know. It's
That's
tough
right.
for your boy. Do that with your teams and listen. Hear them. They're going to be far more receptive once they've kind of cleared, because they're trying the same thing too. They're trying on a different voice. I tell people this all the time. We're all actors in a play. You have your role. I have mine. Let me play mine. Let me exercise. I don't always want to be the understudy, right? I don't always want to be growing. So first thing is listen and then execute. And then lastly, this is one of my favorite principles. It's a two-way door. I coach my team this all the time. Hey, we will get wrapped around the axle, around the smallest decision in the military and in the tech sector. It's not a neck tattoo. We can undo this really easily. Let's just start. Are we sure this is a good idea? Do we need another full day summit to plan this out and rehearse this out and do all the course of action development and bring in our systems team to give us a model? We could just start and see where it's clunky. And if it sucks, let's undo it. And then we have a quick lessons learned as a group. As a group, let's go get it. As a group, let's assess that. I think those are two key areas today. They could do that with teams. a bias of action, and then assess and review often as a group.
Yeah. Get in action. I mean, that's the number one thing. Action. You can't turn a ship that's still. You can't turn a car that's sitting still. It has to be emotion. That's getting in action. That goes back to my idea of, we call it roll up your sleeves and get to work. Put your head down, take action, make something happen. And that's one of the core principles. I wrote 12 principles. I call them 12 common sense commandments now, back in 1993, Dallas.
I love it.
I call them the 12 common sense commandments for success. And it's number one, do it now. Number two is, if not now, when? If you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? Get into action, make something happen, take initiative. And that's one of the things. So if you're listening, make a decision, right or wrong, but make something happen. Folks, it doesn't matter. You're going to screw things up. If you do it wrong, guess what? You won't do that shit no more, will you? If you do it right, great. Let's move on. But that's the thing, is get into action. And that was, when you said that, that just resonated so strongly with me. So you can just nail it, folks, and take action, make something happen. You can always turn the ship a little bit the other way if you're going the wrong way. Just don't let it go too far down the road. So
we'll oftentimes, I'm sorry, just one quick add is we'll oftentimes, for the fear of a misstep, wait too long to take the first step. The presence of something will always far exceed the absence of anything. And you can pivot what exists. We talk about it with code, ones and zeros. Well, you can change a one because it exists. A zero is still the absence of a thing. Even as we think about troop leading procedures back to the military doctrine, one of the initial steps of the troop leading procedure, as soon as you receive the mission, begin necessary movements. And that can be planning movements. That could be steps across the line of departure. Even in military doctrine, we see far before the plan is completed, you initiate necessary movements. And it oftentimes will be pick up your rucks, let's start walking that way. So action. Do something. Things in motion, stay in motion is another really fun one and common one. So couldn't agree with you more.
We know you got to get off the X. I mean, a moving target's hard to hit. I mean, I'm also, I'm a firearms instructor as well. I'm a firearms instructor, competitive shooter. So Wonderful. For me, it's you're on the move, you're harder to hit. That's for sure. So I think you need to write a book. I'm just going to put this out there.
There we go. I'm listening. I'm hearing you.
I think you got a lot of great messages here, and I think it needs to get out. So I'm going to challenge you just a little bit. Why don't you write that book, man?
All right.
Look at this.
If not now, when, right? If not now, when, right? I owe you a date.
There you go. There it is. Take action, make something happen. I think you got a lot of stuff here. So, all right, we're running up on time. I want to make sure I get everything in today, and I got something special for you today. I always ask. I like to ask folks 3 simple questions. Very simple, very simple. So if you're listening, they're simple, easy questions. But we'll see how I do. I call them the bald truth questions. So Dallas, my friend, my new friend here.
Ready.
Imagine you're holding a dinner party for 6, yourself included. So you get to invite 5 people. What 5 people do you invite? And you can invite them from all of history. They could be alive, dead, whatever it is. What 5 people do you invite, and why do you invite them?
No pressure here.
Anybody in all of history, alive or dead.
Gosh, there's some fun ones here. I wanted to put on my nerd tech hat as I think about really quick. Oh, I can invite future people, like my future kids, my future grandkids.
No future people.
Could go all the way back and grab some religious leaders. For me, as we're kind of being reflective, is just, I've never met my granddad. Never met my dad's father. He was a Vietnam War veteran. He passed away when he was the chief of staff of the 1st Brigade 101st Infantry Division, and never got to meet my granddad. A couple books, where he's mentioned and know all the stories. And so I would invite my granddad, my dad, Joe Henry, my uncle, Uncle Lee. I would invite my brother, and then I would invite my uncle's son, Grayson. And we would go to a dinner party at one of my favorite places to trout fish, Rockbridge, Missouri. We'd sit up in the Red Barn. We'd make fun of watching all the Orvis geared up, Gucci laid out, fly rods, watching people fish, and we'd eat a good meal, and we'd go down and talk some good old fashioned Henry family trash and wet a line and do a little fly fishing. So
I love that. You even know where you're going for dinner.
Oh,
man.
I got it planned now.
I've never had anybody do that.
I'd nail it all the way down.
You even know where you're going to dinner, probably what you're going to have for dinner. How's that?
Oh, you go to Rockbridge, you're getting the trout. You got to have the trout.
Yeah, number 2. Question number 2, Dallas. An article's being written about you after you're gone. Now, it's going to be a long time from now because you're a young man. So an article's being written after you're gone. Now, we all have an expiration date. None of us know what it is, but it's there. What's the title of that article?
Yeah, not semi, but really serious answer for me, and a little cheesy. We can make fun of it later. Title would just be others. And I would love for the article to be about my family. And I would love it for it to be about all the people that I was able to touch, all the lives I was able to improve, all the people I was able to unlock, the relationships I was able to extend. The title for me would just be others.
I love that. Oh, that's great. So final bald truth question for you. Everybody has their own routine. What do you do every morning? Set yourself up for success.
There's a really good Army Ranger pound my chest story here, I think, about always 50 push-ups or 25 pull-ups or go for a big run. Make sure I'm simpatico and synced with my wife, Asher. Whether it's, when are your meetings today, babe? Here's what I got my calendar is. Hey, when are you going for your run? Hey, I've got Evelyn at 3. I like a real tight synchronization matrix, a sync mat, as we say in the military, tying in with Asher. And it's typically first as we wake up or right before we hit our head in the pillow. And then I know I can go hang out with my daughter for 2 hours in the morning, but got to make sure household 6 and I are aligned really tight. She's got an amazing career. She's a wonderful coach, takes care of a lot of athletes. We make sure that we're clean, and then I can just run wild all day, knock down all the targets I need, meet with anybody I need to. But if we're clean and we're square to start the day, it's hard to have a bad day after that.
Started with a clean day. That's good. So anything new coming up for you? Anything you'd like to promote? Tell our audience about yourself. How do they get in touch with you? How someone get a hold of you?
Yeah, thanks. Jump on over to Henry Engagements, take a look, see if there's anything you need. The really the biggest thing we try to do is just unlock, whether it's unlock relationships I can introduce you to, or unlock a skill that you're trying to find in yourself. We do a lot of meet and greets. Is now a right time for this coaching or this teaching? A lot of big, exciting things coming up with some speaking series. I'm not all the way done. I'm close on the publication. I'll stay close with you on that, Rick. But yeah, the biggest thing is continue to reach out, help others as needed. Find us over on henryengagements.com or LinkedIn, of course. But yeah, we're happy to hear from anybody. Happy to see if there's a need we can meet. And if I can't, let me find who can, and might be coming back to you, Rick, or whatever it is, because that's as much about leadership too, as knowing, nope, this is my wheelhouse. Nope, but I know who it is. Let me go find this for you. So that'd be the biggest piece. I would just challenge folks. Let us give us a chance and let us have a chance with you to unlock that through us or through someone else.
Perfect. Henry Engagement, www.henryengagements.com. You can find Dallas there. Reach out for him. He's a good speaker. He's a good coach, and he will definitely take care of you and energize and keep your team aligned, fellas. Dallas, thanks for spending some time with us today. We appreciate it. Appreciate you taking time out of your day. It's been a fun time.
Had a blast. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, folks. I'm Coach Rick. Thanks for joining in. Remember to subscribe and like, and you get every episode. This is Coach Rick, and that's The Bald Truth.
You've been listening to The Bald Truth with Coach Rick of the Peak Performance Group, the company that helps people and organizations reach their potential. If you're looking for a way to grow your organization, whether it's sales or strategic direction, the Peak Performance Group coaches can help you grow with their proven business acceleration process. Call them at 817-748-7425 or go to mypotentialplus.com and they'll connect you with the right coach for you. And remember to subscribe and like below. The Bald Truth Leadership Podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, and YouTube video. Hit like and subscribe to get every episode. Thanks for listening to the Bald Truth Leadership Podcast. And until next time, roll up your sleeves and get to work, and you can make things happen.
I'm Coach Rick, and that's The Bald Truth.